Hi folks, listen, I'm Hardy Tools, and what I'm interested in is audio. And there's been a lot of interest in line arrays recently for center channel use in home theater, and a lot of interest on the bulletin boards and the messages I see about people looking at this Bose line array system for musicians. So I wanted to figure out how cheaply I can make one. So I'm going to show you what I did. The things you're going to need are, you're going to need some C-clamps. These are those fancy quick grip models. Doesn't matter if you use these or you use the old-fashioned models. This kind. But you're going to need some. About 4 will do it. You're going to have some black spray paint for the final product. Black spray paint. I used an adhesive glue for some carpeting. It's actually runner carpet that I got at Home Depot for cheap. I did as cheap as I could on this project to see what I could come up with. So this adhesive was used to glue down this material inside the box. That adhesive right there. This, I used plastic spray paint, okay? You got to use plastic spray paint because you're going to find out I made my boxes out of PVC. You're going to need some kind of drill. I'm telling you, you're going to need a drill, you're going to need some drill bits because you got to pre-drill all these screws. I built my box with wood instead of MDF. Either way you go, you're going to crack some of the pieces you have to make. You got to have a jigsaw. This is what I cut the holes with. And boy, cutting the holes is the most tedious part of the process. Cutting the holes and one other trick. The other thing I used was a caulk gun. I kept trying to keep this thing airtight because I didn't want any little hole making a toot sound when my music was coming out. Oh, by the way, I used this 50-year on the caulk because I wanted it to remain flexible for a long time because these boxes will move a little bit in hauling back and forth to the gig. And they are also going to move a little bit from the air pressure inside, pushing the box in and out. I used a soldering gun. I soldered all my speakers. I could have used crimp connectors, but instead I soldered them all. The reason being for me was I didn't want these things to let loose of one, because if it does, it changes the ohms in the speaker cabinet, which could destroy an amp. With DJs, a lot of you guys in the Bose system, called a personal amplification system, what they got is a line array, and at the bottom they got an amplifier built in with an EQ built in. Okay, but a lot of you guys are DJs already. You've already got amplifiers and you've already got mixing boards. Okay, a mixing board is an EQ. There's no doubt about it. You get to mix in what you're putting in, how much you're putting in, and everything else. You can buy a Behringer with 99 effects involved in it for 150 bucks, okay? So, because I had the amplifiers already, I figured I'd make a line array using my amplifiers separate and using my mixing board separate. Let's see, the other thing is you're going to need a belt sander. I don't know what model you got, but you're going to use this thing and you're going to wear a lot of sawdust. The reason, I'll show you when I get to these parts that I put in. Okay, let's see. It all started with how cheap can I do this. I found a grocery store locally who was throwing away some display stands. Here's what I use for my bass. This is a round, I'm guessing 10-pound metal ring thing display stand. Is threaded here, so I use that threading right through the hole, and I changed the pipe from what they had that was too short, took it out, and had it found out that it fit a 3/4 inch regular gas pipe. So here's a 3/4 inch gas pipe. A friend of mine gave me, how much did I need? 2 8-footers worth, used. I took them to Home Depot. I had them re-threaded by their threading machine. Paid 50 cents a thread, $1 a thread, something like that. I also threaded them extra deep because I wanted more contact inside my sockets. Okay, then normally for gas you're trying to just thread it enough to make it airtight. In my case, I wanted as much contact for shaking weight as possible. You're going to need a table saw. Somehow, some way, you're going to have to get your hands on one. The reason you need a table saw is to cut all this junk. Now, I didn't use MDF because MDF, the screws have a tendency to pull out. Once they pull out, you kind of ruin the hole. So I use good old standard pine. This is my liner rack. Here's my material. My material, right here, is a 5-inch, not a 4-inch, a 5-inch fence post. It's made out of PVC white plastic. Okay? Now I took and I mounted a piece of wood inside. You can see it in the end there, inside. And then I built a cap for it. I mounted a piece of wood on the top side because I got stuck going cheap as possible. And I got stuck with 5-inch speakers. If I could change my design, my major change would be I'd go with a 4-inch speaker and I wouldn't need this extra top piece of wood. Because that meant 32 holes more that I had to drill. I'm building 2 of these. There's 16 in each enclosure. And each small piece has 8. So, see how the belt sander had to do rounding of the corners? That's because the fence post is rounded. There's nothing I can do to get away from that. I packed the inside of the box with insulation material and some other things. Before we go to that, let's go to these wedges. When I looked at the Bose design, here's what I saw. I saw one of these coupled up with another one in the opposite direction. And it looked to me like that was a 1.5-inch rise on each side down to a 1/4 inch on the other. Cutting these wedges, you have to use the table saw, and I'm telling you, these things are a pain to do. You cut them, then you jigsaw the hole, then you sand them. You need them flat so they don't warp the speaker when you set it down on it. You have to pre-drill every hole, okay, because these things crack. Make extras. Here's some of my cracked attempts. I must have cracked 8 or 9 of these things by the time I was done. You start putting a screw through wood, and sometimes it just fractures because of the grain lines. Now inside the box, I had to make one of these for each. Inside my box, you'll note that I screwed it all together. The interior piece of wood and this piece of wood was screwed together with drywall screws. But I used the because they're cheap. I used the drywall screws with the rough thread, not the fine thread. I found they gripped better. I also used some Gorilla Glue to make sure that these things kind of bond. I wanted a stiffener on the front end, but I needed a stiffener on the back end too. And there's a reason. So you will see right here, I have a cutout piece of wood. I put 4 of these in each box. For one thing, my hope was it would keep the standing waves from bouncing around too much, going up and down the columns. That's these pieces. They're rounded, they're made out of 2x4, and I Gorilla Glued the backside and then screwed them to hold them inside the box. Made a bunch of these, but you can see where the belt sander had to be used to round them. As I showed you, my end caps are just pieces of 1x. I used a lot of caulk on the ends to make sure this thing didn't chuff and make noise. So, inside here, I put one of those end blocks there. I put one end block here, one end block 2 down from here, and 1 down bottom. Why? Because I wanted this thing to be part of stopping the standing waves from echoing too much. And I also wanted a mounting device. You see where I put the screws in? Some kind of mounting device for my pipe that was going to hold this up on that stand I showed you.